Welcome to the Big Fat Real Estate Checks podcast with Marco Kozlowski, where we help investors like you get the knowledge and skills you need to replace your JOB with passive cash flow for life.
Hey everyone, welcome to Big Fat Real Estate Checks. My name is Marco Kozlowski. I'm joined with Francesco Galluccio and Gabriella Reisha, and we are going to discuss today something that we pretty much know nothing about: retirement funds, tax shelters, and different ways of saving money and doing deals creatively through different mechanisms that are available in the U.S. and possibly in Canada. Now, I am Canadian as well as my compadres here. And before I get too down the rabbit hole, of course, if this is your first ever podcast, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go to the first 10 episodes for sure, at least, and listen to the first 10, and that will explain how we do transactions creatively without using our own money, using asset-based lending. And the objective of this podcast, of course, is to give you absolute fantastic value, cutting-edge information, and, of course, in an entertaining way. We believe in edutainment. And if you like these series, please like it, love it, share it, give us a comment. We're well over 1,000 now, and that makes us very happy on the inside and the outside. Very nice. I like. And we're always excited to help our community grow and be more informed so you can make more money without using money, but skill instead. So where were we? Yes. Retirement. Now, I hail from Canada. However, I have very limited knowledge compared to my two compadres, since Gabriel is a CPA up in Canada, or was a CPA, retired CPA, however you want to say it. He's in the retirement stages of being a CPA, even though he's still in his 20s. And then we have Frank, who worked for the CRA, which is the Canadian IRS version, and he was a senior officer there, and really knows his shit as far as that goes. So, and then I've been in the U.S. for a very long time and investing using self-directed Roth IRAs. And that's a very unique product to the United States. And we're going to discuss tax-free savings, tax-free mechanisms where you can actually do deals within that mechanism, those mechanisms, and how the pros, the cons, how it works, and just noodle around it with it a little bit. Again, I am not an expert by any means. I know enough to be dangerous, and if we get enough comments on this episode, I'm going to bring in an absolute expert on both, and then we can really deep dive into the topic. But right now, we're just going to do a surface. This is not going to be any more than just, hey, this is what's possible. And again, if you leave us enough commentary on this, I will bring in an expert as well as Gabe and Frank, and we'll make this just an amazing topic and go more than the 15-20 minutes that we're going to talk about it today. So who wants to go primavera?
Do you want to start with Canadian, or do you want to start with the Roths?
Let's do Canadians first. It's 3-0 in Canada right now.
I think I wasn't sure if the listeners are 3-0. I think.
Well, if you're a U.S. person, wouldn't it be cool to learn more about Canada?
I guess.
I think there are beavers there. There are moose.
It's cold.
All right. So
we're from there.
There's two.
One day Canadians will take over the world and everyone will be sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I waited for that day.
No kidding. Yes. Okay, so there's, I guess, Frank, we can just piggyback off each other here on this. But basically, there's two tax type shelters in Canada, or vehicles that you can use. The first one is an RRSP, or the Registered Retirement Savings Plan. The other one is the TFSA, or the Tax-Free Savings Account. And they each have their own, I guess, characteristics, benefits, and they have their cons as well. So, I guess let's tackle the RSP first. It's a vehicle that's probably as old as I can remember. So it's been around for a long time. The RSP has limits, annual limits of contribution. So basically, it's a registered account where you put in money every year, and whatever you invest in, or that money that's invested, can grow tax free. And it's only taxed when you take it out. So typically, and I'm going to say typically because this is kind of how the majority of the world in Canada works when it comes to RSPs, is you start working, because the actual RSP limit works as a percentage of your earned income up until a cap So I'll give you an example for 2021. It's 18% is the maximum of your previous year's earned income. So if you've earned $100,000 in that year, 18% or $18,000 will be your maximum limit to be able to contribute to your RRSP account in the current year, which is 2021. Now, let's say you make $1 million a year, then in theory that would be 180,000, but that's not the case, because they actually cap that amount to in 2021 is $27,830. So that's like $14, US, but nevertheless, it's capped every year, and it's indexed up based on inflation and other I guess government type calculations that nobody understands. So that's how the RRSP works. You can contribute every year, and then the money that's contributed into that account can then be invested in different vehicles. It can be mutual funds. You can actually self-direct your RRSP and invest in, stocks or other things. There's certain limitations on, and I don't know what they are specifically, but there are certain types of, like, basically I couldn't use my RRSP to fund a property purchase that I own. So if it's kind of like if it's a non-arm's length transaction, basically, if I'm buying a property in my name. Yes, Marco, sorry.
Can you invest your self-directed RSP funds to buy something that Frank wants to buy?
Yeah, well,
So
that's where I was.
money.
Yeah, you were kind of stole the whole thunder.
Oh.
Here. No, I'm kidding.
Fuck, man. I'm sorry. We can edit that out. These are not the droids you're looking for, listener. You have not heard what I just said. I have not rudely interrupted Gabriel, and you are very sleepy. Awake! Gabriel,
all right.
You okay?
Yeah, I am. Sorry, I just got caught in your... So basically, if I were to buy a property, in my name, and rather than use the bank, I'd want to use my RRSP money, because obviously I can make it grow at an interest rate that's interesting. Essentially, I'd be private lending to myself. That's forbidden under the whatever the rules that govern the registered retirement savings plan. Now, that being said, if Frank buys a property and instead of going to the bank says, "Hey, Gabe, do you want to lend against my property?" Then the answer is yes, I can lend via my RRSP. Now there's obviously a workaround there where you're gonna have to have a self-directed RRSP with a specific broker that can allow you to do this, but it is possible where I can actually lend Frank the money, collect 8-10% interest as a private lender on it, and allow Frank to buy his property and do what he needs to do, optimize it or whatnot, and then he can pay me back whenever he either sells or refinances. And then the same thing where Frank can lend on my property. So we call these RRSP swaps, and these are interesting strategies that you can use in Canada. Now, you need to go see the right brokers, because there's regulation around this, and I can't help you with that, but there are brokers that will help you with that, and they can facilitate this. The important thing to know is that it's got to be an arm's length transaction. So you can't do this with your children or with your wife, husband, any dependents. But if it's an arm's length transaction where it's a third party, even if it's a friend or whatnot, then that's going to be permitted. So that's kind of the...
Yeah. Do you know if brother or sister is an arm's length transaction, or is that considered family?
I think it's considered family, but don't quote me on it. Yeah.
Because I think in the U.S. the IRA structure is up and down, but not sideways, and I could be wrong.
Interesting.
Again, I'm not an expert, but as far as I understand, that brothers and sisters and siblings are arm's length versus parents and children are not.
And the point here is that it's worth inquiring about this, because
Yes.
they're really great tools to use, and a lot of, especially employees here, have a lot of money that gets sent in there, because the benefit of putting, for every dollar that you put into your RRSP, that dollar is removed from your taxable income at the end of the year. So you're saving whatever your marginal tax rate is in that year, and sometimes you'll get a refund if you bring down your tax bracket because you've invested enough. So there's a benefit, and people do this. It's basically deferring tax in the RRSP way, because RRSPs need to be cashed out by, and I think it's year 71 now. It used to be 69. I think it was pushed to year 71. I could be wrong. And so obviously, with the lifespan being, a lot longer than 71 now, what typically happens is 71, instead of cashing in the RRSP, because if imagine you have $1 million when you're there, what if you remove or cash out the full amount, that amount is going to be added to your yearly taxable income. So for that year, you're going to have made $1 million of revenues, which means you're taxed at the highest marginal rate, which, in Quebec here is like 106%. So you owe the government, no, I'm kidding. It's like 52%, which is still retarded, but nevertheless, the government's earning more than you.
Typically don't take out the money all at once. So it turns the RRSP turns into what's called a RIF, a registered income fund by default. If you don't take it out voluntarily, the government says no, you're taking out the money, Gabe.
But when it turns into a RIF, you have an obligation of starting to empty it. So what happens is that you have to. You'll put a set of time. You'll say, I'm expected to live 20 years, for example. So you're going to divide that amount in 20 years. And every year you're going to take 1/20th of the amount. And then that 1/20th will be added to your income. And then you'll be taxed on it. So basically, it's a tax deferral system. It is not, a tax avoidance version, or I guess a legal tax avoidance. You're always going to be taxed on it. And then when, should, knock on wood, you pass away, the RRSP can be transferred to your spouse. That's going to be rolled over tax-free to them, and they'll have to empty it, in the same way. But here's the thing is when the second spouse passes away, it's automatically deemed disposition in the hands of the children. So that's a huge tax hit. So this is, whenever you have RSPs, although it's an interesting vehicle, I'm not going to say it's good or bad because it really depends on your situation, but it is an interesting vehicle. You need to have proper succession planning in order to minimize your tax hit. So that's kind of the way RSPs work, but they are a tool that you can use in order to invest in real estate or get investors into your real estate deals. There's a lot of people out there with millions in RRSPs, and instead of earning 3-4%, they can be earning 7-8% tax free. That's pretty significant.
Or losing money. I remember I had an RSP when I was in my 20s, and I remember I wanted to save for my retirement before I got into real estate, and my account actually went down with fees and with all the nickeling and diming, and they put things into it was a forced one with I think funds. Mutual funds.
Yeah. Usually it is.
And it just declined every year, and I'm like, what's the point of putting money into something where I'm not going to make any money?
Everyone used to get their statements every quarter and look at it and you see a declining because the management fees are very very high.
Are steep, yeah.
Well, things have changed since you've had an RSP, obviously, and fees have started to decrease, but they are a significant part of your return calculation.
Like we went into space, television was invented, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's right.
When I was young, they didn't have such mechanisms.
Yeah.
Nope.
But that's a huge. They zoomed in their walkers is what they did.
Yeah.
So
podcast.
So that's a huge contrast. So just I don't know if we talked about TFSAs much.
No,
not yet. We can. I mean, it's worth talking about because it's a different vehicle.
I do want to just underline that for the listener that's basically maybe tuned out at this point because this is Canadian information. It's actually interesting to know the contrast between how taxed Canada is because there's no tax loophole, there's no tax shelter whatsoever in an RSP. You're just deferring it to later. You're just putting the problem on to later. And in the U.S., you have a general IRA, which is very similar to an RSP, right? But there's also something called a Roth IRA and a self-directed Roth IRA. So, and the Roth part is basically after tax. So an RSP is before tax, a Roth IRA is after tax. And the reason there's a distinction in that is that in the Roth IRA is almost identical. And while you were talking, Gabe, I did look it up, and it is straightforward. But brothers and sisters are considered arm's length transactions, which is interesting. Okay, so there's a difference there. But in a Roth IRA, you can put $100 in your Roth IRA. The max contribution for the last 3 years has been $6,000, $7,000 if you're over 50. That's the rule. So if you're over 50, you can put $7,000 a year. If you're under 50, it's $6,000 a year, period. That's your max.
That sounds similar to the TFSA.
To the TFSA,
because it's capped at a certain amount as opposed to a percentage of your previous year.
It's after tax income.
And it's after tax income, correct.
Yeah.
So it's post-tax. And the reason that's important is because in the U.S., if you make money after tax in your Roth IRA, so let's say that which is what I did for years, and one of the reasons I have a decent-sized retirement fund, Roth, is I was doing, if you listen to a couple previous episodes, I was doing options, and I think we're going to do an episode on luxury flips at one point, but I would take a deposit of $100 that would come from my custodian of my self-directed Roth IRA. And this is so I've already contributed $100. So I just want to show you, give you a contrast here. So I contribute $100, which is way less than the $6,000 I'm allowed, just to be clear. I only have $100 in my self-directed Roth IRA. I asked my custodian to direct the $100 into an investment of an option on a property. That option turns into, it's a control mechanism. It's the deposit to make the contract legal. As soon as the asset explodes, I sell the property for $200,000 more. We were just talking about this earlier. If I sell this earlier before we recorded this podcast, by the way, if you're a listener and going, we didn't talk about this earlier. This is pre-show. It wasn't in this case because this was in Canada. I'm talking about US. But if that $100 deposit and I generate a $200,000 gain from the contract maturing, right, as an option, I put $100 in, I sold the property for $200,000 more, it goes back into my self-directed Roth IRA tax-free forever, for life. So it is a completely tax-free mechanism because the money that was put in is post-tax, then the money that's made is also going to be post-tax, which means no tax. And it's because it's not a contribution, it's earned income. It's like buying Bitcoin back in 2000 for, an eighth of a penny, and you buy $100 worth. And now you have $10 million in Bitcoin, because that's kind of what it would be. Mm-hmm. It is not contribution, it's earned. So any money that's created or earned within your self-directed Roth IRA is tax-free forever. Now you can't pull it out till you're 65 and a half, but them's are the rules. So it's a very different mechanism.
What happens if you take it out before 65?
You're taxed at whatever tax rate you're at.
Okay, so it becomes earned income.
Yeah. So
correct.
I was going to ask you: is there no cap on the income that you receive? So that in your scenario, you got to $200,000 on $100 investment that you put in, and you yielded $200,000. Is there no cap on what you?
No cap on how much can be created, because it's an investment that created infinite returns. I can't put in $200,000 from zero, because it came out of my Roth and it goes back into my Roth. That transaction, $100 came out, $200,000 went back in.
So as long as it's locked into a certain age, you're not paying taxes on that.
No taxes on that, correct. But I can lend on it.
I'm wondering if this sounds very equivalent to the TFSA. I know you can do self-directed, but I don't know if you can do what he just explained.
Yeah, you probably could. There's probably a mechanism to do it, but the main difference is, so here the TFSA works similar to the Roth, but so you have a limit every year, and right now the limit's $6,000, and that kind of gets indexed and rounded up to the nearest $500 every year. And it's cumulative from the age of 18. So as of 18, it started at 5,000, whatever those limits were, they keep adding up. So even if you don't have the money in year one, that you turn 18, when you're 25, you make $200,000-$300,000 a year, you can actually come and take back the whole limit all the way. So if there was 40,000 that you could have done between 18 and 25, then you can just dump 40,000 in there and start working with that. Now, the only thing, and everything will grow tax-free. So if you've invested money...
I've never done a TFSA, and I'm going to be 50.
Yeah, so you
I
can
go back and put in 300 grand if I want to.
No, not 300, because you're going to go back only to when the year the TFSA was created, which is I think 2016.
Yeah.
So
2016.
Yeah, it's fairly new. Yeah.
I feel robbed.
Yeah, and old. Yeah, I know. So
that's only 6 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
The fuck am I going to do with $36,000?
I don't know. I think it's a little bit. It's a lot of options, man.
I think
okay, all right.
I think it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit more than that. But the RSPs, if I'm not mistaken, work the same way. You have your uncontribution from previous years. They keep adding on, don't they, Gabe?
In RSPs, yes.
Yes, in RSPs it works the same way. So I know with the TFSA it is capped. I think actually right now, because I never contributed to it, I think it's around 65,000.
So, Marco, just to give you an idea, it's right now the limit that if you can invest is 75,500 to go back to the beginning. That's what it is.
Okay.
So it's not so bad. So it's not so bad. And The only difference with the Roth,
wait.
yeah, I know,
Canadian.
I know. Okay, so it's like
15, that's like 30 grand
yeah.
US. Okay, all right.
But the real difference is that you can actually withdraw from your TFSA whenever you want, and that's kind of the beauty of it. So the only downside is that if you withdraw money from your TFSA, so say you're always capped at the limit. So right now it's 75,000. Let's say you had invested that $100 and made your 200 grand. If you decide, hey, I want to buy a house, I need my 200 grand, you can take that out tax free, no problem. But you can't reinvest that amount till the next calendar year, and the next calendar year you can only invest the max of 75,500 plus that year's contribution. So you lose that gain aspect of it. You can't reinvest that. You can reinvest it if you leave it in the account, but the moment you take out your profits, that's it. You're capped at whatever that limit is.
Can I invest in stock, in options, and other things in my TFSA?
Stocks you can. Options I can't. Yeah, don't quote me on that. I don't know. I think you can.
I think if you get a custodian or whatever, like a B2B bank.
What I do know is you can't do penny stocks. You can't do penny stocks. I know that because I tried. It doesn't work. You can't short, I believe, either. You can't go short. Yeah, but options, yeah. If they're call options and whatnot, you might be able to.
The reason I want to do an option is because on a property, we can option every property that we want to. Can you put a contract onto a... Can you buy contracts? I don't know. These are questions that I'm asking because I really don't know the answer. Because
that would be cool.
As a Canadian, because there's a super fund in Australia, there's a pension plan in the UK. I can't remember what it is. I knew 2 seconds ago and it just escaped me. But every country has their own retirement schemes, if you will. And if you understand the rules and regulations, you can actually play in those. Now, you can actually have a business in the United States as a non-American and open up a retirement plan for the business. And actually, there are self-directed 401ks, for example, that you can have your business get into. So your business is actually growing money tax-free as well. So you're taking advantage of the tax code to make tax-free money. And it's really interesting as well. We're going to get back to TFSAs. We're going all over the place here, but because I want to hear more about TFSAs, is you can also take someone that is over 65 and use their RRSP. They can actually sign that over to you to have control over, which is I've done a few times where they just never contributed. They're over 65. They don't have any earned income, and or they have very little earned income because part of the rules of a self-directed Roth IRA is if you don't have any earned income, you can't contribute to yourself. You have to have earned income in order to make
Same with RRSPs.
Yeah.
So I would put them on payroll, give them a little bit of earned income, use their self-directed Roth IRA, and then because they were over 65, I could use I had control over their Roth IRA, completely legal, by the way, and then now I can just use it almost like a bank that grows tax-free, which most people don't know you can do. And, I don't know if I'm saying something I shouldn't be saying, but there's a lot of neat things that you can do that are completely legal, right? That allow you to do things tax-free, and you can even open a business in a self-directed Roth IRA. I could take my self-directed Roth IRA with Frank's and Gabe's, put them all together, start a business, completely tax-free income within those businesses because they're controlled by self-directed Roth IRAs. So it's really neat what you can do when you understand the rules. Again, there's professionals that have to put this together for you and with you. Do not play with fire by yourself because the IRS. If you spell out THEIRS, it spells theirs.
Mm-hmm. And
that's how the IRS sees it. It's theirs.
And just
so they want to keep everything.
I just want to, I guess the mandatory disclaimer here is this is just, for educational purposes, and there's no advice whatsoever, whether tax or legal here. So and we do the same. We always go to our tax advisors and legal advisors. We come up with a broad idea, which is what we understand, and then they take care of making sure the paperwork is all in order before doing anything. We just
1,000,000,000%.
Integrity is so important. Yeah.
Thanks for that compliance.
Yeah, sure.
This is all information for educational and fun purposes. The cool shit you can do. Do not. I am not a lawyer or a tax person, nor do I play one on TV, and I have no interest in getting anyone into trouble ever. So do seek your professional advice.
But there are cool things you can do with all these retirement, programs, and that's it. And I think for the TFSA, there's not much to add. It's unless Frank, you have anything to add on that. It's just No, you can withdraw it whenever you want, and it grows tax-free because it's after-tax money, which makes sense, right? And the same thing makes sense that you have to be taxed on an RRSP because you're contributing it. It's pre-tax income. You're actually not being taxed on that income. It gets deducted. So the rule of thumb when it comes to the government tax agencies is that your income needs to be taxed once, and whether it's now or later, it's going to get taxed. So it's up to you if you want to be taxed on later dollars, today dollars, depending on your situation and your tax bracket. So the assumption is that most people make less money as they grow older because they have jobs. So that's why RSPs kind of make sense to most people. But in our world, we want to make more money every year, no matter what age we are.
Listen,
so
I believe
it makes less sense.
I believe 90% of the people that do contribute to these vehicles, RSPs or whatever, they're doing it because everyone else is doing it, and they don't know the ins and outs where they really can take advantage of it. Because most people, RSPs was invented because many people were retiring or wanted to retire for that matter, and they couldn't because they had no pension. They had no company pension. So they're like, all right, so now they're a burden to society. So the government schemed up something and said, hey, why don't we make them save up their own shit for their own retirement? And at the same time, we'll make them earn, they can put it in investments like mutual funds and stocks and things like that. The problem is, I know with my parents, they used to put RSPs. They have no clue what they're invested in because they don't know. And then like Marco said, obviously the economy goes up and down. Some quarters or some years, they see the RSPs dip by, 10, 15%, and some of them increase by 10, 15%. So it really all depends. But if you're really, if you're mindful, or if you have professionals on your side, like tax consultants, things like that, they do know how to circumvent around there where it could be a huge advantage to your income, almost similar to Marco's story with the TFSA. You turn $100 into $200,000 and not pay any taxes on it, which is genius. So in the end, the RSPs, I'm not a huge fan, but again, it's subjective. It depends on your situation. TFSA, I would like if I could do more with it. That's the only thing, but it's capped at your 75,000, like the 6,000 per year. So you're kind of limited.
That's a contribution, though. That's only That's just like an IRA. So a Roth IRA. So I could put $100 in my Roth IRA. Put $100 option on a property, like a hotel. Let's say we get a hotel under contract, and our contract says $100 now and $99,900 a deposit later. Right? We split up our deposit in two. We take a hotel that's underperforming and we do our due diligence and flip it to someone that actually wants a hotel because since you know how to negotiate hotels well, we've all gotten hotels at steep discounts, right? All three of us. And then you sell it to someone that for, $200-$300 more, that couple $300,000 goes back into our Roth IRA tax-free forever. Now it went from $100 to $300,000, and that's not a contribution, that's earned income because we took $100 and turned it to $300. And then you take that $300,000 and then you lend it out at 14%, to someone that wants to flip a property. And then you take that new money and then turn it into something else. And that's next thing you know, you have $5, $6, $7, $8 million in there in the next 5 years and it's all tax free.
I would be very curious to see if you could do that here with the lending part, where if you have that money just sitting, lazy money, we call it, lazy money doing nothing, earning, 1-2%, if that. And then depending on the cycle, so you can lend out at 10% for someone to acquire a property, let them flip and refi or whatever, and then take your money back.
You can do that.
So listen, there's maybe it's worthwhile to get someone on the podcast that's more diverse, maybe on the Canada side and the U.S. side, because and how
Frank just got excited. Yes, I haven't seen his eyes light up like that in a long time.
Look at this. You're capped.
It's like Christmas.
Since he came on the podcast with charged your headphones,
charged headphones. But I get it. It's for me, RSPs. No, I have nothing in there. But TFSA, you're kept at 75. It's not a big chunk, but for many people out there, maybe they're listening. Shit, I have a lot of money in there. Let's see what I can do with it. So that'll be exciting for them.
Actually, let's talk about Owen for a quick second, because I believe Owen has already been by this time. I think Owen has already been published, and Owen's a mail carrier out of Canada. He has 3 hotels under contract. They're all worth at least $10 million a piece. If you haven't listened to that podcast, please go back and listen to it. He's a mail carrier. They're all worth about $10 million a piece, and he has them all. So that's $30 million in assets that he has for less than 7 plus 2 plus 2 is 11 million. So so he's like a third. He's at a 33% discount. Even at a 50% discount, if he could flip all those contracts and put 7 figures in his pocket and be done. And if he did that through his self-directed Roth IRA, he can't as a Canadian because he doesn't qualify for a self-directed Roth IRA. but his business can open up a self-directed 401k and do it on behalf of the business. So, or something of similar nature. Again, I'm not a tax expert. Please consult your professional, but there's a way of doing it within the business where the business itself is actually going to get benefit from that tax law, that tax structure. So, and it's called an ISA, by the way, in the UK. It just came to me. It just, sorry. So they're different things in different places, but they all have similar structures where the government wants you to have some retirement because they don't know how to manage your money. So, but again, if you don't have a plan for your money and know how to work your money, somebody else will, and you're not going to like their plan at all. So being educated on how to take care of your own money is going to be very, very important.
Failing to plan is planning to fail, right?
There you go. Frank, any last nuggets?
No, you know what? Thanks, Gabe, for that whole intro on RRSPs. I didn't think you had it in you, but you know quite a bit.
Neither did I.
It just came out. Yeah. No, you know what? I
blacked out.
In the end, ignorance is expensive, as Marco says. And you know what? I don't know. We're not experts in everything, but we just know on the surface that, we hear and people are doing this, and it's refreshing to know. You just got to find the right people to hold their hands and let them show you the path on how to do this. And if anyone's interested in that absolutely get someone that is professional to do it before you start liquidating your RRSPs. And the CRA will also come after you.
Or converting them, because you can convert as well. There's a conversion process if you have
So anyways, they're good vehicles. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, me too. And again, as a listener, you don't need to have big buku bucks to open up a self-directed Roth IRA account. It takes $100. Every single one of you that's listening has $100. No bullshit. All of you can do it. And you can take that $100 and turn that into millions of dollars tax-free. And that's what everyone should be doing, but not everyone knows how to do it. And with good skill sets, you can take $100 and turn it into as much money as you want to. But it is going to take skill, and it is going to take practice. This is not something that I've been practicing for 22 years and I'm still practicing. It's not something that you master and then you keep refining. So it just takes practice, because with practice you do get perfect. Alrighty, guys. Appreciate you. I think it was a good podcast considering that we don't know anything about these topics. We know enough to be dangerous, but again, we are not professionals in this at all. There are people that study this every single day that have practiced, that actually love reading the intricacies of the Canadian laws and U.S. laws and know everything about everything, and the nuances that I don't understand.
And we put them on our team.
Exactly. Those are people we hire.
100%.
And again, if we have enough, it's worth it. And if we get enough comments on this, we'll actually bring in an expert, which we'd love to do. And make sure that you're getting the best possible information, 100%. So thank you. I appreciate you as a listener. And of course, Gabe and Frank, you guys are awesome. My brothers from another mother. I can't wait to see you guys in Florida when you guys are coming down. And that time flew by. Yeah. I appreciate you. And again, like it, love it, share it, comment, and we love your 5-star reviews. We've gotten over 1,000 and we'd like to get 1,000 more. Please contribute, and I'm looking forward to contributing to your life. And as is Frank and Gabe, we're all passionate about really helping as many humans as possible achieve financial independence through skill. And skills improve society, we believe. And if you're making more money, you're going to be happier. And of course, just have more sex, because when you're happier, you just get laid more. I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but I'm saying it anyway.
Let's see if
Thanks,
it sticks
guys.
around.
Have a great day.
If you like this episode of Big Fat Real Estate Checks, then show some love by leaving a comment and a good rating. Also, as a thank you for tuning in today, we've got a special free gift. The journey to passive cash flow for a life starts by finding deals, and it's easier than you think. Simply go to getdealsbytuesday.com, enter your email address, and we'll send you a free quick start course called Deals by Tuesday. Even if it's 11 p.m. Monday night, this course will show you how to find discounted real estate deals by Tuesday. It's that fast and simple. Go to getdealsbytuesday.com and start your journey toward life-changing cash flow today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.